Aloha and welcome to the very first activity in the workbook Challenge Your Thoughts, where we will continue to work to become the strongest versions of ourselves, and we are doing it together. If you joined me for Project 28 and went through the 28 habits, thank you. I appreciate you and the fact that you're here. So let's start with Challenge Your Thoughts, which is a life change program to become your best self and achieve your dreams. In this workbook, we will be investigating typical cognitive distortions and how they can negatively impact the way that you think and ultimately the relationships that you have, the decisions you make, and the life you lead. So let's start by looking at our cognitive distortions. Okay, so there are 10 basic cognitive distortions, and what they do is they, just like the word says, right? They distort your thinking, they distort decisions that you make, and they cause disruption in your life in many different forms. So what we're going to do first in this book or in this video is we're going to just look at the definition of cognitive distortions, right? What are cognitive distortions? And then we're going to look at why do we have cognitive distortions? And then in the next video, we're going to actually start looking at the distortions, what they are. We're going to define them. And then we're going to talk about ways where we can address and change our distortions by challenging our thoughts. Okay, so this is just a quick introduction. If you have the book that you purchased on Amazon, thank you very much for the support. If you had a chance to read through this introduction, great. If not, I'm not going to read the entire introduction, but like I said earlier, in this resource, it is our hope that you become aware of the cognitive distortions that people develop and its impact on thinking and the self and you, right? So in each activity, you're going to read the definition, you're going to read a short scenario that describes the distortion, and then you're going to look at possible impacts on the self and on thinking. And then at the end of the book, after the 10 cognitive distortions, there are some strategies that you can utilize to reframe those distortions and ultimately improve your life. Now, just like Project 28, you're going to complete 1 or 2 pages per day, and then you're going to allow yourself time to reflect on how each of these distortions may or may not impact your life. Now, you might find that you engage in, maybe just 1, 2, or 3 distortions, and you might do it all the time. And then there are other distortions that you just don't experience. Again, the objective is just for you to be aware of your thoughts and the distortions that is, universal to human beings, and then to reframe your thinking as necessary. Now, I just want to remind you that as you go through the book and you identify and become more aware of your cognitive distortions and you start to change them, please take time to celebrate the little changes that you will begin to see. And always, always, always be kind to yourself. And know that, this isn't just your challenge, right? Is to stop, right, having these distortions, right? It's a universal struggle for many of us. So it's important that you realize that we are in this together, and we're here because we're trying to improve our lives, and we're doing it together. So let's first just talk about what these cognitive distortions are. Okay, so we're going to read just this section together, and then we're going to look at just a short example, and then talk about why, right? Why we have these distortions, and then we're going to start tackling our distortions so that we can be more aware. All right, first, cognitive distortions is a term that was coined and founded in 1976 by psychologist Aaron Beck. And then David Burns just additionally popularized this whole idea of cognitive distortions. Now, what are cognitive distortions? They are ideas that are over exaggerated, habitual, right? We get into bad habits. They're often irrational, wrong, defeating, right? And negative. So these cognitive distortions are thoughts, feelings, emotions, and or beliefs in response to a problem that causes your problems to get worse. Okay, so again, right? They're ideas that run around in your head. So picture like just a whole bunch of like little ideas, right? Forms that are running around in your head that are exaggerated to the negative, degree or slant. They become a habit because you learn to deal with these ideas, right? Habitually, okay, and then they're irrational. They just kind of don't make sense. And when I started looking at these cognitive distortions for myself, I realized that I would have these irrational thoughts, and sort of deep down inside, I would know that they were irrational, and I was choosing to hold on to these irrational beliefs as if it was like a protective mechanism for me. So even when I started realizing, I realized that I was holding on to these thoughts, even though they were wrong. Okay, and I knew that they were wrong, and they were like stopping me from getting to the place I knew in my heart and mind I wanted to be, but I would hold on to them. And so it's really important that we become aware of our cognitive distortions and the impact. Okay, and because they're often just exactly these, just defeating, negative, wrong. Okay, and they can be thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, and typically it's in response to a problem. It's a habitual way that you respond to a problem, okay, that causes your problems to get worse. So you have a thought, it's often wrong, it's in response to a feeling or an emotion or long held belief, and it causes your problems to blow up, okay? Now let's read this section right here. Okay, now imagine, and God forbid, you get diagnosed with prostate cancer. Okay, so you get diagnosed with a prostate cancer, and then you go to the hospital, and then your breast gets removed, right? That doesn't make sense, right? Like you're probably like tapping your pointer finger to your temple because you're like, wait, what? That doesn't even make sense. You get prostate cancer, you get your breast removed. That's off, right? You can see how this would cause a problem. In order to treat a problem, you must see it as correctly as humanly able. And then you must diagnose it in the right way. Okay, so cognitive distortions prevent the joys of a fulfilled life of love and abundance. Why? Because you're constantly looking at problems and you're not diagnosing them the right way. Like you're looking at a problem, or this is what cognitive distortion basically does, right? You've got a problem and you aren't addressing them the way that they should be. It's like this, the prostate cancer and removing your breast, it's off. Okay, so cognitive distortions do nothing but prevent the joys of a fulfilled life of love and abundance. Now, okay, so believing in God, and you don't have to believe in God, right? Most people believe in, unless you're an atheist, right? Most people believe in a higher power. So if you believe in a higher power, right, then you sort of believe, and I'm making an assumption here, that you know that there is an existence of good and evil, right? The yin yang. It's like two competing forces, and there's a battle, right? So the way I look at it is, because there is this battle between good and evil, right? A cognitive distortion is a tool from the other side. So if you've got good on one side and evil on one side, typically I believe that humans want to be good, But then there's this push on the evil side that wants you not to have goodness, right? Love, abundance, contentment, all of that. So a cognitive distortion is on the evil side. It's a tool because it takes away from your life of love and abundance. Okay, let's look at just a real basic example. Now, I would encourage you that if you cannot relate while I'm speaking, either pause the video and come up with something, or let me share and then pause the video and think of something that just more closely relates to you. And then, so you get what I'm saying, right? Okay. Let me just, if you were with me from Project 28, you know that I just talk too much. So sometimes I have to just stop myself mid-sentence. And I always repeat myself. I think it's because I taught middle school for years and years and years. Anyway, okay. You ask your significant other, I'm reading right here. You ask your significant other for a ride. Okay. He or she says that there's a conflict and is unable, cannot give you the ride. You are confused and you're angry. Okay. Automatically you start to believe that he or she doesn't care about you. Okay. So you automatically think that, and then you habitually just kind of perpetuate that idea in your mind. And really you really don't have any reason why, right? You haven't done any investigating or anything. Okay, but here's the real reason why your significant other can't give you a ride. Let's just say that he or she is ashamed or feel really bad because he or she doesn't have enough gas money, but is too embarrassed to say to you that this is the case. So you keep that original distorted thought in your head that this person doesn't care about you. Okay, so then every time you need a ride, you never call this person, right? Because you kept that initial incorrect, habitual, defeating, negative thought in your head. So without realizing, you choose never to ask him or her for anything because you've convinced yourself that the answer will always be no. Okay, now imagine the problems this one thought could perpetually cause for your life. Now, something happened that was unfavorable, and automatically you start conjuring up reasons for why this is without doing any kind of investigating. And sometimes this can happen so quick that you don't even realize it's happening. But then it just affects every single decision that you make from now on, connected to, in this situation, this one person. So we have these distortions, and in this case, what does it do? It keeps you from connecting, right, with this person. It keeps you from asking for help. It keeps you feeling isolated and alone, like you can't ever ask for help. Okay, so these are cognitive distortions. And again, you can see how this would cause problems in your life. Now let's talk about why we have the distortions. We'll just do one more page and then we'll save the first distortion for our next video. Okay, so why do we have cognitive distortions? Let's read this section. The directions, right, is in black. It says, read this section, okay? Then, so that's this section right here. Then in the rectangle below, that's this rectangle, right? You're going to draw a picture or brainstorm words that come to mind when you hear the word distortion. Okay, so why do we have cognitive distortions? Cognitive distortions are common, okay, to all people. People's distortions are related to life experiences, that are biased and reinforced over time, right? So in the previous example, you have a life experience, you think something, okay, like, so an idea or rationale pops into your head, okay? And then you just reinforce it over time. Like you keep telling yourself that that's the reason. So anytime any kind of related situation arises, you might reinforce that negative belief. And when you keep doing it, it just becomes habitual. Now, these distortions, if you're not paying attention, are very difficult to detect. Okay, because you could continue to think in distorted ways because you believe thinking this way will protect you. So that's another reason, right? You're gonna continue to do this because you want to save yourself from rejection or failure. So this serves as a protection for you. Okay, like a barrier, a wall. Now you are going to continue because you receive some kind of payoff or reinforcement for continuing to think in this sort of distorted way. Okay, now going back to the first example, right? If you think that the person you ask for help doesn't want to help you, okay, and you know it's uncomfortable to know that someone does not want to help you with something, right? It's an idea that you get. So if, okay, you have another need, you don't want to take the risk of asking for help because it doesn't feel comfortable to get a no. So you're just going to find a way to stop yourself from asking for the help so that you don't have to feel that way. It's a protection, okay, from rejection or failure. Now, I give you this example because this is a distortion that I created for myself because of a belief I developed when I was 12, 13, 14. And I just kind of reinforced it. And that's exactly what we do, right? We reinforce these distorted thinking because they sort of provide us comfort, okay? Comfort and protection from getting further rejection or failure. Okay. Now, sometimes cognitive distortions are forms of excuses that stop you from doing the hard things in life. So that's another reason why we have distortions. Okay, because right, doing something that's hard is scary, and so if if you have these distortions, then they prevent you from doing the more scarier things. They keep you protected, if you will. Okay, now cognitive distortions are ways also of coping with difficult life events. So you can see how a cognitive distortion would just be a way of not having to deal with something on a more deeper level. And so these are all reasons why we have the cognitive distortions. But basically it's protection. It's because things are hard, we are scared. It's because we don't want to face difficult life events because we might open ourselves up to something that's uncertain, right? So these are reasons why we have these distortions. So we know what they are, we know what they can do to us, right? And it's very negative, and then we know why we have them. Okay. Now, if at this point in time you just don't fully understand cognitive distortions yet, it's okay. Don't worry about it, because as we go through the distortions and the strategies, it'll just become clearer. So the idea or the goal at this point is just to get comfortable with that whole idea that we all have cognitive distortions. And there are universal, similar type distortions that we all have. So you don't need to feel bad about having cognitive distortions. You just have to be aware that you have them so that we can change them and we can ultimately improve our lives. Okay, now it's really cool that we can do this together. And so like I was in the previous book, Project 28 videos, it's if you have any aha moment or something you want to share, please share it in the description or in the comment section of the video, because we are here to create community and to help each other live our best lives with strategies that are so simple. Okay. Anyway, what we're going to do now is draw a picture or list words that come to mind when you hear the word distortion. Okay. Now I'm not going to take time or take the time that I should take here on the video, because then why would you want to see me drawing a picture, right? But what I would really like you folks to do is draw a picture or list words that come to mind when you hear the word distortion. Now, when I hear distortion, I think distorted, right? Distort, wrong, broken mirror. I even think of I think it's Michelangelo who drew the picture, he created that artwork where there's the ear is it's a face, but then the ear is under the chin, and then the eyes are below the chin. You remember, it's just distorted. I also think about the apps that they have on our smartphones now, where you can turn yourself into the Elephant Man, or the filters, right, where we women we take pictures of ourselves and all of a sudden we're like beauty queens, right? It's just distorted. So that's the kinds of things that come to my mind when I think of distorted. And basically, as I'm drawing the pictures or listing the words, I'm thinking, oh, wow, distorted means not really reality. Like, it's not real, it's false, right? So that's sort of the idea, right? These cognitive distortions, they rip from us our best lives, right? They steal it. They give us false perceptions of what we are, who we are, and how to live our best lives. And so what I would like you to do is take a few minutes to draw a picture. Okay, pause this if you have to, just for accountability purposes, and come back. Or as soon as I'm done, get to drawing, get to writing down the words. Okay, so again, just real quick, I'm going to recap. We know what cognitive distortions are. We know how they can rob us, okay, like a thief in the night, so that we don't live our best lives, right? That's a tool from the dark side, okay? And we know why we have them. So now at this point, just make sure you know what they're taking from you, okay? And make sure that you know that cognitive distortions, they give you a very false sense of reality, okay? Now, thank you so much for joining me in this video. And in the next video, we are going to tackle the very first common cognitive distortion. Again, thank you so much. I totally appreciate you watching my video, and I really hope that you are you were able to get the book and you are actually filling this out as we speak. Again, thank you and aloha.